start from the. So we are. So I just am. I don't want to use the word proud, but that might be the best one. You know, proud of his accomplishments, his #1 singles as a solo artist. And you know, a little known fact that his dad is a scholar, and he gets his consciousness legitimately. And so we're going to ask him about, you know, his trip to Ghana and working with KiDI, who's like a multi-platinum artist from Ghana, and you know, just how all these different puzzle pieces fit together in the becoming of Stokely. The album title, the new album, is called SANKOFA. And the theory of SANKOFA is you have to go back and acknowledge your past in order to move forward. And so this is it's fitting that this album is called SANKOFA, because so much of what Stokely is about is rooted in our knowledge of what he's done in the past, but also, you know, what he's doing now and how that telegraphs what's coming in the future, because he's definitely a world-class talent. So, okay, so I just got a note that he's on his way. This is not his fault. We had some technical difficulties, as I was explaining a little while ago, where the links weren't talking to one another. And so, you know, we're getting around that. I'll tell you a little bit about the history of the Impact series. I've gotten so many people asking me, they didn't realize that we were doing this. Well, it's kind of new. Back in 2019, we had a client, David Foster. You may know, not David Foster. Everybody knows David Foster. But he was one of the co-founders of Stax Records, and we had to do some events with him, and he wasn't able to do an event in Los Angeles. So we turned it into a virtual event, and it was very successful. But what we really learned through that exercise, and this was pre-pandemic, mind you, is that, you know, if you provide juicy enough snippets of that information, people will actually click on that video. People actually click through and watch the whole entire thing. And we had such great feedback from that session with him when the pandemic hit and we were unable to have live in-person events last fall. We just kind of pivoted to doing this. And I asked Jason, who is one of my colleagues from Musicians Institute. We both teach marketing and other things in the music business program. Jason is a 20-year veteran of KCRW, where he had a show, I believe was on Thursdays, and now he holds down the weekend with shows on both Saturday and Sunday. So he is definitely the man. I see we have our guest.
Oh, okay, we're here.
Yes.
I can't hear you.
Hello, hello, hello.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you good. Yeah.
I can't hear you.
Hello.
I've been trying to.
Oh,
I can't hear you.
Hello, hello.
Let me try you back.
Okay, no worries.
Let me try it. If you can hear, I'm going to try it back again.
Okay, cool. I hear you great. All right, so the tech is the tech. Hello. Hello. So it's exciting to even be in this place, you know, working with Jason. Say that again.
I'm about to do the intro, so we can.
Well, wait till he comes back, and he can do that. Wait till Stokely comes back.
Okay.
He couldn't hear us.
I know.
So, you know, so even in the midst of the excitement and stuff like that, we have to deal with like these technical things. And but we know he'll be back, and it's going to be a great interview, and you guys will definitely add to energy. At the end, usually the last 10 minutes, 15 minutes or so, I will take questions. Jason's going to bail a little bit after 5 because he's got to go teach. But I'm definitely going to hold it down, and we'll get some questions in at the end. I hope that sounds good. Thank you, Tracy, for your notes in the chat. Okay. It says Stokely looking to audio.
There you go.
Okay, there we
All
go.
right.
Hey,
All right.
we did it.
Okay.
We got it. Made it.
We
right.
sure did.
Are we ready?
Allison is going to give us a formal intro. Jason, we got you over here. Okay, gotcha. Go ahead, Al. Take it away.
Okay. Thank you and welcome this evening to our last Impact series for the year. Tonight, our host, Jason Kramer from KCRW, Thornell Jones from the Ovation Agency will be interviewing Stokely, the voice, the musician, songwriter, and for many, that is all one will need to know to say with confidence that they are a fan of Stokely Williams. He is and always has been much more. Take it away, gentlemen.
I'm excited. I'm excited. I love the new album. I mean, of course, I've loved you and your voice for many, many years, but I'm so excited by how you take your Stokely thing and have put it in this contemporary context, and it's fresh and it works. And as I was telling the people before you got on, I probably have no right to say this, but I'm so proud, so proud of you and what you're doing and what you're accomplishing. This is really, really wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that you think so, man. I mean, it's been, just doing my heart, and just spreading it. Anybody who listened, and hopefully the spirit of what I'm doing agrees with you.
That's wonderful. Allison framed this as an interview, and it is that, but at the same time, we'd like to call it a conversation. And because Jason and I, one of the hats that we wear is we teach at Musicians Institute in Hollywood. So, we get into debates. So sometimes we'll be debating each other and you'll be laughing at us because we took, different points of view. And, but this is all to kind of celebrate you and your story and your journey. And we'll talk, music and politics and love and travel and whatever it is you want to get into. So, you meander however you like.
Yeah, and I will sometimes. Yeah.
Okay, it is all good. So, typically when we do these like twice a year, we're trying to get it to trying to do it four times a year so that we develop a catalog of things that people can go back and listen and hear, in an artist's voice, what their what their vision for themselves is. So I would just say to you, hey, everybody, can you make sure that you mute your audio?
Somebody's audio.
Yeah, somebody's on. Their video is up, but their audio is still on. Natasha Hayes and iPhone. We both need you both to mute, okay? All right.
Uh-oh. I can't hear you. Turn your mic on, Thornell.
Okay, I'm good. I'm back.
There you go. All right.
All right, cool. So everybody else should be muted except for us. Perfect. All right, cool. So jumping right in. You move through life and, everyone has a self-image. When you think about who is Stokely, how do you describe that to yourself?
To myself, how do I describe that?
How do you speak to yourself? When
I guess that is that's the everyday journey, finding our purpose.
Yeah.
Finding out who we are with each passing moment, each person that you meet, each experience that you have. This is what we're trying to get to. Who am I, right? This existential kind of thought thinking, and who am I? Where am I going?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's pretty much,
I don't do it, but plenty of people do. Do you think of yourself in the third person? Like this that Stokely is over there and I am here, or you organically always yourself?
For some reason, only as of late, I've never been a third person like that. I've never spoken to myself in third person, but for some reason, something has been shifted.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what. And I've been able to see that, experience it, and like, I'm watching this person, like, what, who was that? What, you know what I mean? It's interesting. It's only recently started happening, yeah.
When I was a kid, I remember my dad used to make me read all these metaphysical books, and one of the, the founding fundamental principles is about being self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of being able to see yourself, or to see yourself as other than yourself, and not necessarily in the third person, like, you're a character or a caricature, but being able to see yourself is just, I think it's a maturity. It's a different level of maturity.
I think so. Yeah.
It's funny because we do these and Jason will sit there and then he'll jump in with a crazy question because he's like doing deep down Dewey Decimal System research and stuff like that. What you got going on over there, Jay?
Always research.
Oh. So the reason I wanted to call you in because one of the things I really like about this new album is it meanders through so many different kind of, it all hangs together because of you, but it's really diverse. Going here, kind of going old soul, kind of, going contemporary. I love the song with Snoop. But last week we talked with an artist, a project that had some African artists on it. So we're going to go down this African path because that's like Spotify tells me that Afro beats and African music is like my #1 category for the last 3 years.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can't, the data doesn't lie.
They're right.
This
Here's
is
what you like. I know you do.
Right, exactly.
I've been watching you.
Exactly. And Jay, family from Jason actually manages an artist who is from Senegal.
Uh-oh, mute phone. Somebody's phone.
Come on.
Hey, I think. Okay, cool. So Jason actually represents an artist from Senegal. So we kind of are on this African vibe. I was so happy to first hear and then see the video for Woman featuring KiDI. Now,
yeah.
I didn't know about him until after I heard your song, but then I went and did a little research and found out he's the real deal.
Yes, sir.
So
yes, sir.
Tell us about how that whole song came together, and then tell us about your journey to Africa and doing the video for that, because it's so beautiful.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it is. So, okay, KiDI did the song, Woman, and shout out to my writing partners, We Shakespeare and S. Dot collaborated on this beautiful works, beautiful painting, I call it. And after we did the song, it was just because this thing was about, this most beautiful and the most amazing creators, on land, and this thing, without women, none of us would be.
None of us would be here.
Okay, so greatest producers ever. Of course, fathers are there too, but women, first teachers, the first everything, So that was all cemented there. We were looking for, I'm thinking international because I grew up with an international ear, and that's just where I sit naturally, Right. And so we're looking for other people to, collaborate with. I'm looking for, someone who's got it's a different vibe, and came across KiDI, man, this young brother killing it. More or less like the Chris Brown of Ghana.
Right.
I don't know. You know what I mean? So
ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know KiDI, you need to go check him out. He's got like 1.5 million monthly listeners in Ghana.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He's the real deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And just caught a vibe with him, my management, his management, and was looking at his stuff, and man, this dude is he's the real deal, and plays instrument as well, you know, little keyboards. So that definitely helps with the musicality and the thing that I like to be associated with, you know. So yeah, just the right fit, man. And after we did collaborate on the song, put his vocals down, the director that he always works with, and they have a fabulous situation over there. That just the way that their whole setup is great. Rex, the great Rex, who did the video for Woman. He was like, you know, if you guys come over here, we can do it pretty inexpensive. So, you know, really come on, I don't know. So got the opportunity to do that because it wasn't planned. You know, people think, oh, SANKOFA, I get it, you know.
Right.
And it's just something planned. It's just SANKOFA is a Ghanaian word, and you know, yada yada yada. No. So I'm just walking in the light, man. These things are predestined. I think the whole vibe of it, it's bigger than me. So I'm just, you know, opportunities are coming in. I'm just like, you know, so we get a chance to go over there, and just blew my mind, of course, like I knew it would.
Have you ever been there before?
My first time.
Oh, see now, that's what I'm talking about.
First time, you know, and it was so funny, you know, my parents, when they started going back and forth to Africa, the first place they landed was in Accra. Right. And so so many things that just kind of connected the dots, and I didn't know that at the time. I'm like, oh man, this is crazy. So here I landed in Accra, my first time, and just amazing, just the smell, the look, the culture, the music, the food, everything, the dialects, you know, just the beautiful hues that we are, man, just beautiful. Just what we do, how we do what we do, the swag, everything, man. It's just like, wow, it doesn't matter the language. I still understood it. You know, I'm like, that, like the brothers over there got this thing, and I was like, what is this thing? Like some of their fingernails, they grow long. I'm like, what? But there's only one.
On one hand.
Some have both, but yes, only one hand. It might be the pinky, and you know, I'm like, what is this thing? He's like, yeah, it's a thing. It's like, you know how we are. It's like, yeah, I get it. You know, small thing. I'm like, what is that? It's like crazy, man. But just this whole thing of being creative, you know, creating things out of nothing. Being there and just, you know, just the ingenuity of it, man. Just, you know, just rings my bell over and over and over since I've been there. It's just, you know, really amazing. So that, making those connections just felt the spiritual thing, of course, you know, when you go home and you feel like there's things that you missed or don't know, or you're trying to find, like we're going to go back to who am I? Right. This is part of that whole SANKOFA principle, you know, going back to get it, to go forward, you know what I mean? So all these things, even this is speaking now, it means so much. And it has its own way of coming together organically. So it's the gift that keeps giving at this point. So a lot of things, my whole universe has been shifting for the last few years, you know, and I think this is, you know, something that's happening right now, you know, and so for this to affect you all the way that it is, and to hear this, have this kind of discussion about it, because I never really get to, you know, sit down and not really talk about stuff like that, you know what I mean? So I appreciate you for having me on here to be able to do that. Yeah.
It was like the first question I had. I mean, of course, like, because Spotify tells me that my #1 music. But it really was. I was like, I want to know how they did that, because people are, you know, doing collabs and stuff like that. The other day I was, you know, like playing, I just chose Burna Boy, and he's now collaborating with Ed Sheeran and all these big pop artists. Like that. Right. Like, wow, that happened fast.
Yeah, right. You know, the shift. You know what I mean? Well, that's crazy. Well, I love it.
There is politics to that part.
Oh yeah, naturally. Yeah.
It's not about bringing artists from Africa to America. It's just the opposite. It's bringing Ed Sheeran to Africa.
There you go. Absolutely.
That's problematic for me.
There's an exchange program going on, because they are. Yeah, that's definitely true, I think. But you know, it's interesting. I'm hoping that that the exchange, you know, coming from Africa to America can really happen, because there's a lot of connections that can be made, you know, and that's what I see. And I'm like, man, of course, Americans trying to get the capitalistic mind, all that, we get how that works. Well, but I mean, coming up the other way, I want to make sure that, you know, the opportunity coming here to affect is real, because that's really important. And that's the thing that I saw, and they're hungry for that. It's like, look, how can we best do this? Working with their PR people, it's like, they're great, but they have a lot. I can see where they have room to grow, and they're looking to see how that translates, how that transfers, how that converts. You know what I mean? So and that's what I would be interested to see. So that exchange program from there, that perspective, I'm definitely interested in. So I'm going to be going and interfacing with some more artists to see what we can work out. And, you know, whatever I can do, whatever little shine I got, you know.
The beautiful thing about Woman is you incorporated KiDI, but it was like, it didn't feel like you were reaching. It didn't feel like you were like, okay, now I'm going to go over here and do this Afrobeat song. It wasn't like that at all. It was still very Stokely, what we might anticipate from you, but he brought his thing to it and obviously introduced you to his fans. And it's I don't want to beat it to death, but yeah, I think it's just a dope idea. And the fact that it came together organically and it wasn't something premeditated makes it even more powerful for me, even more powerful.
Right. Yes, thank you.
So here's a little pivot. Tell us a little bit about your dad, because he also appears on the album.
Yeah. My pops is, he taught at a place in St. Paul called McAllister College, in St. Paul, Minnesota here. And he taught Black history, anything that had to do with Black people and like politics, finance, entertainment, everything, his own unique way and blend. He was able to do that. And he's emeritus there now, of course. But just a great influence in my life, of course, and my mother. Taught me how to hunt and go get it, you know, how to think, and still does. And he's kind of like guiding light, him and my mother. And yeah, it's amazing, amazing spirit, amazing man, you know, where really, and I know I've had to share him with many other people here because there's been a lot of people's father, you know, intellectually, you know, just really being their North Star as well, you know, but just amazing. This cat who just continues to inspire me, really.
Right.
Yeah.
So had you ever worked with him before you asked him to
you know, the only other thing, like as of note that I'm really proud of that we were able to do is, you know, it's another group that I played with for a number of years on called Ursus Minor from a French group. It's me, another brother from Philly who's passed on now, and then Mike Scott used to play for Prince, took over. Then there's a Tony Hymas, Englishman, and Francois Cornelou from France. Us four of us made up Ursus Minor, and that's we would go there back in. Excuse me, sorry. Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I want to catch on fire here. I'm sorry.
We don't want that.
We don't want that. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm saying Sheesh. Okay, let me get back on track. Sorry.
It's okay. This is a conversation.
Yeah, I'll say, as I was saying,
some brown liquor, we're gonna pass it around.
Say it again.
I said next time we'll have some brown liquor and we'll pass it around.
Oh, there we go. There was, I'm sorry, I lost track. What was you saying?
You're talking about Ursus Minor.
Yeah, so Ursus Minor, so I was able to, you know, did a gig over there, was able to bring my father over there. He did a piece on Frederick Douglass, and I was able to play, you know, together on stage. So that was just so like an amazing moment, amazing trip, you know, watching him, you're like a kid. What's that? What street is that? What is that? You know, just, you know, it was just like one of the things that we could do together, which was really as a grown up.
Yeah.
Just amazing. That was, you know, great. But no, other than that, of course, on the, if you go listen to the Mint Condition album, Life's Aquarium, he's on the end of that as well. That's his voice.
Okay.
And, you know, taken from many, many hours of speaking, and, you know, you get, you know, because he can go, you know, on, yeah, you can go. So you gotta have your voice memo ready for him. So you don't know what he's gonna say. So a lot of these things, you know, on Life's Aquarium, that's where that was an excerpt from that, and the same thing with SANKOFA. And I want to engage him in, you know, the project that I'm doing, which is SANKOFA, and just many other subjects. We just, you know, just roll from there. Yeah, but amazing, amazing man.
So I you know, you speak of your dad in very much the same way as I speak of mine. He's an amazing man. He's completely like, you know, I love how you said the North Star. And he's going to be 84 this December. And yeah, he's been,
yes.
And he's so active. He's more active than he was like in his younger years. It's like he's out there, the social justice warrior, man.
Oh,
you know,
man.
Reparations and, you know, the lynching memorial and on and like everything he was doing when I was a kid is still centered to his being. And it's a through line all the way to his 80s. I sometimes think, you know, like I spoke for a class today at, it was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And one of the students asked me, well, what is it that keeps you going? And I was like, well, you know, I was always told that, you know, go A, B, C, D, and eventually you'll, you know, get this ring. It was, you know, being head of marketing at a label. And I was like, that was what I wanted to do.
Right.
But in the end, what it came down to was the fact that it was the music that kept me engaged. It was that thing that was my through line. It was like, it didn't matter what it was. It was the music.
Right.
And like, so Black history and, you know, Black people progress and consciousness was your dad's North Star, the through line. So, you know, and I absolutely appreciate that and admire it. And it's interesting, and I say this about myself as a setup to ask about you. I find that, you know, my personal politics and how I approach the world is very much informed by my relationship with my dad. You know, sometimes people are just like, oh, you know, whatever point of view, whatever that was historical. And I'm come with my own fresh point of view and stuff like that. But for me, I find that, you know, despite the education, despite the travel, it comes back to some core values that I learned from him. And I say to you, just like you, I share my dad with a lot of people. He's kind of a public, you know.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And, but do you feel like you had to filter through what you were learning, or did it just come packaged in a way that you said, okay, this is how it is?
It comes in buckets every few years, I think. You know, it's one of those things where, and it gets dumped in. It's like, oh, certain things will happen as a teenager. Certain things happened in my 20s.
Right.
More experiences. You can, you know, then it's, you know, challenge me here and here and here.
Right.
And then I get there, and then it's like, oh, okay. And then I have married and kids. That's a whole other thing. You know what I mean? So all these different, like, wow. And it's like, oh, that's what oh my God. You know, just over and over, it just keeps giving and giving. And the more that you live, you know, it's you know, he said, I've done it. Right. I've done the dance, man. Right. And so here I am. I was like, oh, that's what he was doing. Just little subtle things. Right. You know what I mean? It's like, yo, like he used to laugh at me sometimes. I'm like, what do you laugh at? And it's, you know, I would just be an average mundane day. And maybe teenager, something like that. Right. And he just start chuckling, like, what are you laughing at? What is it? And I watch my son, and he'd just be sitting there. I'm just, you know, here's this little person that was nothing, has his own personality, and I'm just sitting there, and he's like, what are you laughing at? And I'm like, wow, this is crazy, man.
Hey, you just repeated the intergenerational thing, but yeah. Jason, what did you pick up from your dad?
Mine, well, he was a pretty blue collar, worked for the airlines and an ex-sergeant in the military. So it's funny enough, he wanted me to go down the world of doing a lot of that stuff. And I always came from a very creative background. Yeah, you know, it was weird. But I enjoyed my dad because he challenged me, because I worked in EMS. I was a medic for 10 years of my life before I got into music. So I think that kind of like prepared me to get into that world. to kind of challenge folks. It's terrible for me today because everybody, especially the youth of today, they can't handle anytime you challenge them.
That is so unfortunate, and I completely agree. I mean, as teachers, I mean, we're not professor emeritus, but as teachers at MI, we often hear war stories of the craziness of the experience. Lavinia, we need you to mute, sweetheart. Lavinia, we need you to mute, okay?
Can you? I think you can mute it, Thornell, no?
I can't. Allison,
Whoever the host is can.
Yeah, Allison, you could kick her. It's kind of
I just did.
Okay.
Lynn, we need you to mute, please.
Lavinia is still.
She got the message.
Okay. Yeah.
And to turn off your video too.
Okay. So everybody.
This always reminds me of folks that stand in line at the market and they're going to pay, and it's as if they've never used an ATM in their life before, no matter what. And we've only had ATMs for 20 years, and yet they're still confused on how to do it. I mean, we've had it for over 20 years. That's the funny thing.
So back to talking about
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, I want to go back to what we talked about with Ghana and that, because Thornell and I were actually having this conversation yesterday, 2 days ago, about how Africa kind of has a branding problem when it comes to explaining what Africa is to America. Because Africa, as we know it, is just one place. And, like he was saying, I manage an artist that's Senegalese, and we recently saw a show at the Roxy here in Los Angeles for an artist named Rema. Now, Rema is a Nigerian artist, and I'm standing next to Miriam, and I don't even say, what's he saying? Because there's over 100 dialects, and she's born 500 miles away, even though they're still in West Africa. There's 100 languages in Nigeria and 7 different tribes, all which are different. And so we as Americans, we look at Africa, we look at as almost as we look at Australia, as like one place, one country. I mean, essentially Australia it's a continent and a country at the same time, but Africa, but 53 or 54 countries within one continent. And we forget they're not all the same. But when we grow up, we think it's all the same. We think it's, we learn that it's either Ooga Booga, as Thornell said, Africa is huts and safaris, or, it's some prince, trying to sling you stuff on the email. And it's far from that, and it's really far from that. And I think that's a branding problem that Americans have or don't understand, with music. And it's fascinating to me that, you go to Ghana, and Ghana, I mean, we were breaking down from Ghana, Nigeria, Ethiopia, South Africa, Senegal are probably the most progressive in the musics. That we get here, from Femi Kuti to Olatunji to the stuff out of South Africa to, even the politics of who was it? He was featured on Bill Maher, and he was talking about Little Stevie about Sun City was during the apartheid thing in the 80s. Them, instead of playing at Sun City, they're like, forget it. We need to tell people what they do here, and we're not going to play it. And that was the first time people realized, there's a country in Africa.
That's true. It's
really
definitely
understanding the distinction, starting to understand the distinctions.
But that's where it comes in with like the musical ability about, coming in, and Americans, instead of using splice, actually using, very progressive drum beats from the different communities in different regions, and really propelling that forward. Otherwise, it just goes in the genre of world music.
Yeah, it's really interesting, man. It's very true. Just trying to figure out how that, because and if they're so very influenced by America because America is America.
Yeah.
And I think that's a hard thing because, you know, things are manipulated here as well. So, and then they have, you know, they don't have the capital to do what they need to do, but it makes them extremely creative.
Yeah.
You know, on the other hand, it's like they will make something out of literally nothing. And it's just one of the most amazing things. So imagine them having everything that we have, or even half of it,
Right.
you know, would be interesting. So, I mean, it's, but at the end of the day, it's, you know, they want the same things that we have here, and they look to that for that. That's a lot of what I was getting. It's like, how do we do this? How do we do that? How do we get from, you know, we convert this into something real for us, you know?
Do you think people that don't have a lot of stuff actually propel in creativity because they're not wrapped around in others?
I think so. You know, if they have that sensibility, you know, I think it's probably something that you may develop. Just like it just seems like if you have a creative mind, you take two people with you know both creative minds, and you give one everything and you give the other nothing, but they're both. It's interesting to see what happens. Now, you know, can be anecdotal to, well, you know, thing that usually happens doesn't, you know. But I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. A lot of times, the people that you know don't have much. That happens with people with sports, not having money or not having this or that. It does propel them forward. You know, not saying that somebody else that has, they can have things, but it's just going to be a different drive. You know what I mean? Because naturally, if you've not had to think about something that's not in your nervous system, you haven't had to build up anything. No armor for that.
Right.
As if the other person would have to build up some armor, so that frightens him into like, no, that's never going to happen. Whereas the other person just like, what? You know what I mean? Never heard of that. So pressure, as they say, pressure makes diamonds. You know, I don't know. I think that's there's something to be said about pressure, and I guess fear, you know, of something. You know. So it's interesting, you know, and not to say, like I said, the other thing couldn't happen, but, you know, it just seems to me when you have something, you know, that was never a problem. I mean, you don't even know it exists, that somebody tells you, you know.
Right.
But I don't know.
So on your record, you know, Thornell mentioned about having Snoop and that. I really like the fact that you have artists like Here performing.
Like, say it again?
The artist Here.
Oh, her.
Yeah, her. What am I saying? Here.
Yes.
Her.
Okay, right.
Performing.
Yes.
I was talking about her today. She's very prolific in her styles. I mean, doing stuff with Skip Marley, and then you know, doing stuff you know, earlier on, and
yeah.
How was that as far as, you know, as a collaboration for someone as gifted as her?
That's one of the things I love about her, is, you know, because she's playing my heartstrings right now when I see that, you know, these different things reaching out, and I'm like, wow, that's what a musician is and should be, to be explorative, try to challenge themselves, you know, the public norms, you know, whatever enforced trends or styles are happening at the time. You know what I mean? Right. I think, and then everything else, you can make the categories where we're out here creating, trying to explore. And, you know, you guys, you can throw darts at it or whatever. That's our job, is to do that. Test and pride and probe, and, you know, whatever our own artistic urges are, you know. But yeah, that's one of the things I love about her. And that just, you know, came about just through mutual admiration, and also management as well, knowing actually her management used to manage Mint for a short while stint. And so we've, you know, kind of kept in contact and that kind of thing. And I had my wish list of people. She was on it. And started making calls. And yeah, that song showed up, and we collaborated on that. She, you know, I received that song from her. She had it in that stash for whatever, but it just fit with everything that I'm doing. So I put, you know, my sprinklings or whatever on there as well, so to make sure it's a true collaboration.
Right.
And yeah, it's,
When did you record this?
I'm sorry?
Would you record this?
So we was virtual because it was over
the
pandemic, you know. But so at her studio, and then mine, I did everything else here.
Okay.
Yeah.
When are we going to stop using the pandemic excuse?
You know, I don't know. You know, I hope sooner than later.
Yeah.
You know, I hate hearing it. Did this over the pandemic, you know, or whatever, you know, but 2020,
Right.
the COVID situation,
You know,
the COVIDity of it all.
when we become old men and we have youngsters sitting on our lap, we're going to be telling them, you know, at the turn of the century, you know, and I think about that, the turn of our century, and, you know, you get right into a depression and a disease. Kind of worries me almost, but I think we're a little beyond that.
Let's say it again.
Oh, I think we're a little bit beyond that, but just saying the term pandemic and turn of the century, it seems so weird, and as if we were there before.
It is, and that's the buzzword. That is, you know what I mean. That's what's going to happen, because you know, it bleeds, it leads. You know, that's going to be the thing. You know, no matter what it's unfortunate for us. It does scare me.
Yeah,
you know? You're right. It's
they made I guess last week we crossed this threshold. There were 700,000 people who have died from COVID, right? And they said it's more than the last pandemic, which was the influenza outbreak in 1918, 1919. So I know by the time I grew up, I don't think anybody was talking about it anymore, you know? So it fades from the public's consciousness at a certain point.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Then you know what happened.
Right.
You got to go back, or, you know, to take something like this. Oh, the last time this happened was, you know,
right. Exactly.
one of those deals. Yeah. Wow.
But we'll pull through this.
Yeah, of course. People are resilient, man. If anything, it's really reminded me. People are, you know, we're good. We're gonna be all right. We're gonna be all right.
But I would
we just got to unify, you know, and stop all these extra. We got to bring it together, people.
Well, especially, I mean, if we're going to bring it together, I mean, we're in a world of globalization with everything in technology.
Right.
But at the same time, we're so split apart from each other because of technology. So, you know, there's that slight thing there.
There's that.
Yeah. But I think, you know, I would just love to hear it in musics, all kinds of musics that, you know, kind of that element of punk rock again, you know, we're fighting back. You know, and use the term punk rock is not, you know, slamming around in circles, but
I get it. Yeah.
You know, as we talked about in the series before, I've always thought jazz was the first punk rock, you know.
Absolutely. It's rebellious music. That's why they called it Chinese music. Absolutely. That's why they play those notes and those extensions like that, you know. It's the Thelonious Monk with all those clusters. It's like, you had to really know and feel and know what that highly complex thinking man's music.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I go to bed to jazz sometimes, and if it's too busy, I can't fall asleep because I used to play horn. And so.
Oh, forget it. For you got all the melodies. Everything's in there.
Well, there's just too much going on. I had a friend, Adam Dorn, he goes by a band named Motion Worker, but his dad was Joel Dorn. And we once had a conversation about Sun Ra, and he told me, he said, there's a lot of going on in that, you know, there's a lot of story going on in that, a lot of information to be told. And you listen to guys like Sun Ra or any of those Ornette Coleman guys, or you know, in mid 80s and that, there was something there that just kind of it's almost like it changed your internal brain chemistry of listening to things.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I believe that, man. I always say music can definitely change your molecular structure, you know, right up in there in cells. And, you know, I think that's why, you know, you have chanting that goes on. There's a resonance that happens in your whole temple, you know what I mean? Whether it's an actual, there's certain notes, healing notes, you know.
Right. So, I mean, you just came out of your musician's bag just a little while ago. I think when you were in Mint, everybody knew that you were the drummer. And then at definition of the band, Marty and me were like, no, you got to come out front. and so people lose the fact that you're like an amazing musician. What's in the water there in Minneapolis, St. Paul? And how many instruments do you play?
I don't know, man. I whatever. I like I say, every instrument at least has one song. I got one song, and whether I've seen it or an instrument or not, if it makes noise, it sounds pleasing to my ear, I'll try something. But some of the classic ones, drums, bass, keys, enough to get my points across, I should say. I have just enough colors to do what I need to do.
Gotcha.
The real playing, and the only thing I really claim was drums, percussion. Okay. I've been doing that longer than anything, longer than vocalizing and singing, any of that. So the white, it's just one of those things, man. Each place has its thing. Philly has its thing. Chicago definitely has its bag.
Right.
In parts of LA got their thing, Houston,
Right.
It's one of those things. And then whatever, decade it is, it could be your moment. Memphis had theirs, Atlanta's still having theirs, New York, LA, Chicago, Detroit. I mean, Motown, come on. It's like
right. It's true.
Minneapolis. Yeah. So you get in, you just emulate what you see too, just like humans are imitative animals. We just do what we see and we expound upon it till we make it our own. We can call it, whatever, this is your own style. And we were the same thing happened for us, with Mint, creating our own style, loving bands from the 70s, right. Seeing all these amazing, even, folks like Queen and Led Zeppelin and right. P-Funk, right. Earth Wind, all these Stevie Wonder, all these great artists. So, a culmination of all of that stuff coming through. And it was just wild back then. And as far as the multi-instrumental thing, that's I was always I used to play in a lot of different bands, drums and whatnot, different singers around town, and but whichever group I would play with, they would always leave the instruments in the basement. So I would always get curious, mm-hmm. What were they doing earlier? On keys, same thing with guitar and bass, And so I kept doing that more and more. So it's like I had all these instruments always in the basement because we were always right. rehearsing for something and someone. You know what I mean? Right. That's how that came about. And then I had some formal education on some of that keyboards and whatnot. Later on, in high school, I was calling my second father, the guy who helped put the little shine on me, Cliff Alexis Sr. We had a steel drum orchestra mm-hmm. in high school. And so, yeah, he was very, very instrumental in, introducing me to steel pan and that whole world, which is one of my favorite instruments. So that's how a lot of those things, I just kind of kept going. Anything that I see now, I'll try to put some hours in if I really, really, really dig it, but to be a real player, as we know, musicians, it takes that time. You got to put it in. So, I'm trying.
Malcolm Gladwell says it takes 10,000 hours. It's a whole lot.
There you go.
A whole
lot. There you go. Couple lifetimes.
Exactly. So
yeah.
Look, we're kind of coming to the end, but what we always like to do is take questions, and we have a handful of questions from folks in the chat, and I'm just going to read them off, and you can answer accordingly. So we have a young lady named Latasha J. She's asking, will there be any special guests on your next tour?
It depends on the city and the availability.
Yes.
Yeah. Tours are hard now, aren't they?
Yeah, man. Nobody's like a lot of it's on the weekend, unless you are really, truly properly financed. What I mean? You go week to week, like we did something over the weekend, and right next door, the Stones were playing for 2 nights.
Now,
59,000. I mean, they had 2 nights. It's just a lot. It was a lot of people.
Yeah.
Stayed. So, unless it's something like that, and this was they're out for the weekend, it doesn't matter. Stones is the Stones. So, but most folks are doing like weekends, flight dates, that kind of thing. So, yeah, so it's different. Yeah.
Just keep it peeled.
Yeah, they're in New York, or no, you're in Miami, right?
I'm in Miami now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very wrapped up here. I mean, you got to show your birth certificate before you go into a place here. So
Where you, Jason?
Los Angeles.
Oh, you okay? Oh, really? You have to show it's wow, like wow.
You have to show your COVID card and an ID and all that. So I mean, they're pretty strict here. They don't mess around.
Yeah. Wow. Huh.
So I got a question. So when you were playing, how much of an influence was Stevie Wonder to you?
Big. I mean, it's like I would pick artists, or artists would choose me, I guess, for a certain time. My first big influence, at least vocally, was Al Green. Hands down. That was the guy. I would say he's like 15, 20 different people in one body. Yeah. He's like the symbol of singing. Like, but yeah, he did it for me, man. I mean, just my God, just. And then, I loved the compositions of Stevie.
Early or later?
Early. Like even like
finale.
like in Intervisions, Fingertips even,
Yeah.
some of that stuff, just with stuff he did. When I heard it, there's certain connection. And then there was a bunch of different jazz artists, and a lot of jazz drummers, Art Blakey, Max Roach, some of these players like that. Miles Davis, of course, all these different voices that I heard very early. And so a lot of that rhythmically, melodically, harmonically, Stevie was definitely on that tip. He was just very advanced. So a lot of these different styles, and some people I mentioned, Ella, Kramer, McCrae, all that stuff was mixed in there, and I heard all that stuff inside of Stevie. He had a way of blending all of that stuff to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, but there were many other people, at the same time you're, downloading that stuff, just from life. That's just the sonic landscape at the time, but he definitely influential. Yeah.
There's a question in the chat about, would you ever do a collab with India Arie? I mean, the answer was probably yes, but
yes. First of all, man, she's amazing.
Because it's actually India Arie that's asking you. So
what's that?
I'm kidding. I said it's actually re-asking. Yeah.
No, and she knows this too. I said, man, and I told her, it's like, look, one of her, she's done so many great albums. Her early stuff is great. I just heard, what was it? The other night I heard again. Here she goes again. She just freaking. She's a monster, man. But I don't know the name of the album. I told her it was one she did with the Turkish musicians.
Okay.
Amazing. She's one of the most amazing musicians, spirits.
You're like looking in the sky, just like, oh my
God. I'm trying to fuck her. She's out of here, man. I mean, she's on an island by herself, really. True.
She really is. Yeah. And I know that in my everyday life, I kind of take it for granted, but every time I either see her, or candidly, every time I even hear a record by her, I'm like, wow, she really is her own thing.
She's her own thing.
She's her own thing. And speaking of Africa and collaborations and stuff like that, she did a record last year with this group from Kenya called Sauti Sol. It's called My Everything. And it is so perfect. Everything about that record is perfect. I think that just the timing wise of when they ultimately put it out and stuff like that. But that record is so great. You should go experience that, because Sauti Sol is pretty amazing. They're the biggest,
How do you spell that?
SAUTI.
Okay.
SOL. Sauti Sol.
Okay.
So we got one more question in here, and it is from a lady with 3 names, Lynn Bongiovanni Turner. She states,
hey, Lynn.
SANKOFA is an artistic masterpiece. How did you choose what songs appeared on this project? So that's open to however you want to answer that, but that's Lynn's question.
Part of one of the reasons, other than us not knowing what to do and somewhat in 2020. For me, there's 18 songs that ended up, or with the interludes, whatever. There were at least 10 more that I wanted to put on here. So I had to sift them down and, try to figure out if I'm going to do a volume 2 and, whatever. But yeah, it was tough trying to figure that out. And, because I originally said I'm only going to put 10.
Right.
So they pay you for anyway, 10 records, so. So, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do what I feel till it's complete. You know what I mean? And, yeah, it was just, I think just through listening, me and my management, and we would have a few people, friends of friends, just to see what things they liked. And then the track listing was the last thing we did, just to listen to the vibe, the energy going from one song to the next. It took a little while just to really get that right for our liking, because we wanted the listener experience from beginning. And even though one song may not sound like the last, there's still a thread that's running through it. It's that heartbeat, it's that energy, it's that drum, it's that percussion. It's that's the motif that runs through the whole thing. So it is connected, and it's connected because of the spirit of, all the ancestors whose shoulders that stand upon, all of that. It's like, that's all the genres that we've created. And it's all one thing. We can talk about rock and roll, or jazz, gospel, blues, blah, 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 whatever. All these things run through it. And that's the thread.
Right.
So I think just going through it over and over, just, trying to get the track listing right. And certain songs just sounded, they weeded themselves out. Not that they weren't good, but they just weeded themselves out. And we ended up with what we have, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, some things don't belong within this particular collection, but I think you use the right word. It feels complete. And that's what was so dope about it. I was just
Thank you.
Now that's an album.
Which is what I wanted to make. I didn't want to make a CD. I didn't want to make a stream. I want to make an album.
Right.
Well, which is funny today, because you can make albums, especially on streaming. I mean, that's our marketplace now.
Yeah,
you're able to double up on these albums these days.
Yeah, true. Like, and really, in a classic sense, this is an unofficial double album.
Double album, yeah.
Right.
It's definitely double truck with all the notes on the inside.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, man.
Well, this has been so dope. Thank you for joining us today on the Impact Series, music, media, culture. I think we hit all the high points.
Thank you.
You are more than welcome. Is there anything you want to say to take us home?
I just appreciate being here. I really do, man. And the work that you all are doing. I'm just honored to be here. A lot of gratitude. So thank you for, hanging out with me, spreading the word, and, everywhere, all in this whole SANKOFA thing together, this whole journey together.
Yeah.
Whatever lane that you're in, it still applies to all of us. So, just be all a little bit of SANKOFA in all of us. So just keep walking into the light, man. Absolutely. I appreciate all the fans out there, Woke with Stoke fans. Thank you so much showing up. People who don't know who the hell I am, thank you for tuning in and sticking around, if that's the case. So appreciate your questions. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Stokely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Gentlemen,
Thank you both.
This concludes our Impact Series for 2021. Thank you, Stokely. Thank you, guests. And thank you to our hosts.
All right.
Signing off.
All right.
Everybody have a good evening.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.